Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People Story. I never thought I'd have to defend my choice of underwear to the police, but that's exactly what happened last week thanks to my crazy neighbor Karen. See, I'm really into anime and manga, and I like to express my interest through my clothing. So I have this cool anime print underwear with different manga characters on them that I love to wear. They always put a smile on my face, even if no one else sees them. Well, I had just finished doing laundry and hung some clothes up to dry in my backyard, including said underwear. It's completely fenced in, so I didn't think anything of it. I headed back inside to read some new manga I had just bought. About an hour later, I heard aggressive knocking at my front door. I opened it to find Karen standing there, red-faced and seething. Before I could even ask what she wanted, she shoved her phone in my face, showing a picture of my drying clothes. "What is wrong with you?" she shrieked. "How dare you hang such filthy, inappropriate things outside for the whole neighborhood to see?" I took a closer look at the photo and realized she was talking about my underwear. That's in my fully fenced-in backyard," I said. "It's not like I'm waving them around on the front lawn." "I can see them from my window," Karen snapped. "I will not have such obscenities in view of my children." I tried to explain calmly that they were just fun underwear and not obscene at all, but she would have none of it. "You should be arrested for public indecency," she declared. "Now hand those disgusting things over before I call the police." Now it was my turn to get upset. "Hey, you don't get to just come to my house and demand my personal belongings," I argued. "I'm not giving you anything." Karen's face turned an even deeper shade of crimson. She glared at me menacingly. "Fine, then you leave me no choice. The police will make you hand them over." With that, she whipped out her cell phone again and angrily punched in 911. I stood there in disbelief as she proceeded to report me for sexually deviant acts. Within minutes, a squad car pulled up and two officers approached my front steps. Karen pointed at me dramatically. "That's him, officers, the neighborhood pervert. I want him arrested immediately." The officers looked confused. One of them asked Karen to explain what was going on. She jabbed her finger in my direction again. "This deviant," she sputtered. "He's hanging repulsive anime pornography in his backyard for all to see. I demand those filthy things be confiscated as evidence, and this man be charged for his crimes." The officers raised their eyebrows and looked at each other. Then the senior officer turned to me. "Sir, can you please explain what this woman is talking about?" he asked. I quickly explained about my anime underwear hanging innocuously to dry in my private fenced backyard. The officer looked like he was trying hard not to roll his eyes. "Ma'am," he said evenly to Karen, "it doesn't appear any crime has been committed here. This man has a right to have his personal belongings on his own property." Karen looked ready to spontaneously combust. "Officer, this is an outrage," she bellowed. "He is intentionally exposing himself and subjecting the neighborhood to his perversion. If you don't arrest him, I'll—" Suddenly, she shoved past the cops and stormed into my house, making a beeline for my backyard. The officers hurried after her, yelling at her to stop. I chased in after them, my anger rising. This woman had crossed the line. When I got outside, Karen was trying to rip my underwear off the clothesline while the officers attempted to restrain her. She was screeching unintelligibly, consumed by rage. As the cops finally managed to drag her away, she broke free for a moment and came charging at me. Before I could react, she scratched my face and grabbed a chunk of my hair, pulling hard. I cried out in pain. The officers wrestled her away and immediately put her in cuffs. One of them asked if I wanted to press charges for assault and trespassing. I said yes right away. Karen kept screaming at me as the cops led her to the squad car, threatening me and claiming I was the real criminal. But her unhinged antics had only revealed who the truly deranged individual was. At the station, I gave my official statement, and Karen was booked on charges of assault, trespassing, and harassment. I also filed for a restraining order against her. I had security camera footage proving she entered my home illegally. A few weeks later, I testified at her trial. Karen's lawyer tried to argue that she was concerned about protecting public decency, but the prosecution presented my underwear as evidence and demonstrated they were just harmless cartoons. In the end, the judge sentenced Karen to anger management classes and community service. She also had to pay a hefty fine and stay 100 feet away from me at all times. I'm just glad I stood my ground against her insane behavior. and I can still wear my whimsical underwear without fear of another crazy confrontation. Karen picked the wrong otaku to mess with. The next one is a pro-revenge story. Please allow me to note well in advance this story is not mine. In fact, it's a rather popular story in a town I once lived in, Savannah, Georgia, and centers around one homeowner who got royally annoyed with a movie producer. There will be a note at the end about the fellow this story is about, for those interested. Okay, so first and foremost, when movie producers are looking for places to set a movie that takes place in colonial or even 1800s cities in the U.S., due to the sheer number of parks, wide roads, and period houses, they will often select Savannah, Georgia. They'll pull all the Spanish moss out of the trees or trim it back, pour dirt on the roads around the squares, and effectively backdate that part of the city to fit most any place, even up to some having used the area as a setting for places like early Washington, D.C., and even places in Britain or France. Typically, when producers do this, they will pay each homeowner whose house is used as background flavor a couple $1,000s for the licensing to do so. That will be important later. Trust me. They issue some rules like no electric lights being visible, not coming out of any door that faces the street, and you have to move your automobiles away from the drive, if you have a drive. Well, in 1979, a producer came from Hollywood with the intention of using Savannah for that very purpose. Specifically, the producer was from one of the big three-letter TV channels and was working on making a made-for-TV movie talking about the events after the assassination of Lincoln and the subsequent accusations of the doctor present at his death. The production went to the city to seek permission and then sent an announcement out to each of the homeowners telling them of the various days that the shoot was going to take place. However, much to their downfall, they also noted that the production company would not be compensating the homeowners for the use of their homes as backdrops. This was met with some great annoyance by the homeowners, who turned to the city for help, only to be told that it was their civic duty to allow the use of their homes. Most everyone agreed to this and bit their lips. One homeowner, however, didn't. He decided to get revenge on the production, attempting to screw up their shooting every chance he got. He first started by leaving his car out in front of his house, only to have it towed before filming started. He threatened legal action against the studio, but that fell on deaf ears. He forbade the use of his home in some of the shots, but the production company got the city to make him back down. Eventually, enough was enough, so he waited, biding his time until he was certain they were filming. When the day came that his house was being used as a background shot, the homeowner grabbed a massive Nazi flag and hung it out front of the house out of one of the top windows. The production company balked. They knew that this ruined any shot they'd used there. And what's more, they started to question just when he'd put the flag up. Was it just the one day, or had all the previous shots, some of which showed the house from across the square, been ruined as well? They turned to the city for help, and the city just basically shrugged, saying that it was his First Amendment right to do that, and implied that had the production company paid the homeowners, as had always been done before, then this probably wouldn't have happened. In the end, the production company had to end shooting and go to the homeowner begging for him to remove the offending flag. He did eventually do so, but only after his lawyer got a contract in writing that required the production company to pay all the homeowners for having their homes in the shot. The flag came down, and shooting wrapped in less than a day. Interestingly, it said that in the movie in question, The Ordeal of Dr. Mudd, there are several shots where you can see a bright red Nazi flag flying from one of the homes in the distance. That stunt cost a producer a quite substantial amount of money and pushed production back at least a year while they tried to find every single instance that the flag flew in the background shots. This homeowner would go on to himself become very famous, though not for a good reason. Even so, he lives on among the legends of that city, both for his revenge against a movie producer and his later brush with fame. The next one is a petty revenge story. A few months ago, I was out running errands on the weekend. One of my errands had me pick up some cupcakes from a local bakery for D&D. This local bakery makes fabulous cupcakes with unique frosting flavors. Lavender honey is my personal favorite, so they are pretty popular. Due to their popularity, I had ordered ahead. Unfortunately, the woman behind me didn't. Enter entitled Karen. As soon as she queued up, I felt slightly queasy. It was likely due to her perfume, but, alas, something more was off. It did not take long for her to complain about the length of the line. There were maybe 4 people in front of me, honestly not that bad. but it's a small shop, so it can take some time to process everyone. Instead of looking at her phone and scrolling through Instagram like a normal human being, Karen decided to whine and moan about how slow the service was. This, of course, made everything feel infinitely slower. Once a few people had been served and she could see the glass cabinets, she decided to complain about the lack of variety. It was at this point that the staffed employee, who was ringing up someone else, told her that what they had on display was the last of the morning batch. If she wanted specific flavors, Karen would either have to wait for the afternoon batch to be finished, or, next time, order ahead. Karen didn't like that. She huffed about how a bakery, again small and locally owned with a maximum of 2 bakers, should obviously make more cupcakes than they can sell because what if she wants a dozen of their seasonal flavor? The employee tried to explain how they made only a certain amount each day and that this is their policy. Again, she could order ahead or come back later. Now, this entire time I'd been scrolling on my phone, again like a normal human being, and didn't figure Karen would do anything besides make buzzing noises. I was wrong. We were standing more or less next to one another at the time since it was my turn to pick up my order. Karen's face went into a shade of red I can only describe as overheated pig. She then started berating the employee about how unfair the whole thing was. She just continued to sputter about the atrocity of not having the cupcakes she wanted. Now, it is never okay to scream at someone who is just doing their job. What Karen didn't know was that I had eaten curry the night before. 2 bowls, in fact. I had deliberately been holding my sphincter shut to avoid gassing out anyone. However, I decided to let my butt blow a fellow a kiss. I turned myself slightly to get ample aim and let it rip. A faint hissing was heard, most likely only by me, as Karen continued yelling. She then suddenly stopped. It's as if the world slowed as her nostrils sniffed the now pungent air. She gagged ever so slightly, but I heard the disgust. It took everything in me not to erupt with laughter. I prayed the employee didn't get caught in the crossfire. They were a few feet away due to the counter, but Karen certainly took the full blast. Luckily, no one else was behind her. I left the shop with my delicious dozen and a little bit lighter. The next one is a malicious compliance story. Something happened today that made me realize I was committing malicious compliance for a long time now without noticing. There's no aftermath for today's case, but I hope it still counts. Anyway, here goes. At my workplace, overtime is not paid out. Instead, it's saved to be used later, meaning if I work 2 hours extra on one day, I can choose to leave 2 hours earlier on another day without any pay cuts or consequences. I could even leave 4 hours early and only make up those 4 hours within 2 or 3 weeks, a little bit every day. It's a good system. Each of us has a little NFC tag they hold over a scanner at the start and the end of our shift, and the system automatically logs the time. Nobody can alter the data. Yesterday I got a message from my boss. I did not read the message, though, as I was having a massive headache, and didn't read it before coming into work today. I actually only read the message after my boss then told me that I will be working the closing shift that day, he told me, after asking via message and not receiving an answer. The thing is, today my shift started from 8 a.m. and went until 5 p.m., so it's a 9-hour shift already, and the closing shift means cleaning out the place after 5 p.m. Cleaning out the place can take from 30 minutes up to 2 hours, depending on a lot of factors. Usually it's a quick 30-minute job. Takes me 45 minutes though, as I'm a bit tidy. But considering I was, once again, forced to do the closing shift instead of being asked, an issue that I mentioned to my boss and colleagues plenty of times and caused lots of problems in the past, I was kinda pissed, so I thought to myself, make the best out of it, and how? I cleaned the place. Yes, it took me almost 2 hours. I was going slow, taking my sweet time, listened to some music over the PA speaker system, and afterward, I took a relaxing, long shower before leaving. Taking a shower in my field of work is my right within work hours, so it's legal. But where is the malicious compliance really? The malicious compliance comes in at some later point, when I will either collect enough overtime to take a few days off, or when I can simply tell my boss, "You do closing shift for me now. I got plenty of overtime. Bye." But considering I'm the closing shift by schedule again tomorrow, I'll probably be collecting plenty of extra overtime now. The next one is an entitled people story. My entitled sister expects me to apologize for snitching on her after she tried to out me to our parents, so me M17 and my sister F14 have never gotten along, not because she is only my half-sister, but because she is an immature and spoiled idiot. For some context, like 3 days ago, I told my sister she should stop dating her boyfriend because he is too old for her. She did not take my lecture kindly, and she did the only thing her immature ass could think of. She decided to tell mom and my stepdad that I am gay. She found out that I am gay a few months ago after she bursted in my room when me and my BF were making out, and she's been threatening me that she will tell our parents ever since. Thing is, they already knew, but I never told her to give her a fake sense of superiority, and ever since she thought she had me at her finger. Well, it seems like my sister finally decided to reveal my secret. So what she thought was about to be a session of my parents yelling at me or someth turned into an intervention on her insensitive behavior. As our parents put it, she idioted about how Jay was the bad guy because I was blackmailing her. But I wasn't about to let her get away with trying to ruin my relationship with my parents. So I did the only reasonable thing. I told them about her boyfriend, which, mind you, is 17 turning 18 in not even 2 months. Meanwhile, she just turned 14 in June. So you can imagine how angry our parents were when they found out that she was dating a guy over 4 years older than her. At first, they scolded me for not telling them earlier and helping my sister cover this up. At the end, we both got our punishments. Mine was a 30 minutes lecture for not telling them right away, and she got her phone and laptop taken away. Dad cut the Wi-Fi on her TV, and she isn't allowed to go out. All of these restraints will stay until the end of this summer, which, honestly, it's not that much if you ask me. The day after, I was met with my sister in my room telling me that she deserves an apology because you ducking faggot ruined the rest of my summer and all my plans. I told my parents what she said, and the punishment was extended till October. The next one is an entitled parent story. My mom and I immigrated to the U.S. in 1997. She met my stepdad through an international dating service. My life in America was never hard, so to speak. My mom always told me and my sister growing up that times were tough. As a kid, I never knew what it meant. My childhood was filled with the word no. As a kid, you're gonna want toys and to go do things with friends. My mom always said no, and if I asked my stepdad, all he would say was, "Go ask your mama," which always led to a no. Now I'll say this. I was never starved. I was given what I needed growing up, but it was always the bottom of the barrel. I remember I asked my mom for a pair of Nikes once, and I really mean once. They were $65.99, and my mom looked at me and said, "You're so greedy. You are so ungrateful for what you have. Your family back home could never afford nice shoes like that. Don't ever ask me for shoes like that again." Until I got my first job, I wore Walmart and Kmart. My mom had it drilled into my head that asking for things that any kid would ask for was wrong. That the family back home had it so bad that I would be doing them an injustice for having clothes, toys, or video games when they couldn't. A side note that is important. When I came to America initially, my mom and stepdad did not want me to start school a year late. So I brain dumped Spanish and learned English. It was not until last year, 2022, that I really started taking the initiative to learn Spanish. Also, a side note about my parents. They have separate bank accounts. My stepdad claims that his money is his and my mom's money is hers. This will become relevant. Also, my mom would never pay for a ticket for me to visit our home country because she said it was too expensive and that I didn't speak Spanish anyway. I got to the point where I was very fluent in conversational Spanish. My original plan was to surprise my mom. I practiced by getting in touch with family members back in our home country. I was talking to one of my cousins and I asked her how her day was. She said it was okay, but she was waiting for the wire from my mom. At first, I thought that was some sort of slang that I was not familiar with, so I asked her to clarify what she meant. She then tells me that she was waiting for my mom to send $800 down to them, that they were waiting at a Western Union for her MoneyGram to come in. At first, I am thinking something is wrong. I offer to help. My cousin says, "No, your mom does this every month." I asked again if something was wrong. My cousin said no, so then I asked how long my mom had been doing this. She said since 1999. I asked her if it's always $800. My cousin explains that every month is a little different, but it's always been $600 a month. I said all right and called my mom. I told her that our cousin told me about the money she's been sending down there every month since 1999. She said, "Yeah, it's for your grandmother's medicines." I called her out. "No, it's not. You send them money because you feel guilty about living in America and they can't. So you send them money every month, and they spend it on the same things you have told me I wasn't allowed to have because I was greedy." I told her that during that conversation I asked my cousin what type of clothes and shoes they wear. They said all the name brands that I was never allowed to look at. They took vacations on my mom's dime to Brazil, Peru, and Puerto Rico, while I missed every single school field trip that required money. I got a job at 14 so I could help with groceries and buy my own clothes because I felt that I was costing my mom too much money. I explained that according to them, she would send at least $600 a month down there. That would mean she has sent over $170K. I told her she could have helped me and my sister get through college. But instead, we had to take the student loan route. I asked her this question: "Is the reason you never bought me and my sister tickets to go visit because you didn't want us to see the truth?" Her reply: "I brought you to America. You had it better than all of them. You're just ungrateful." I said, "No, I just don't feel guilty about being here. If they really wanted to come here, they should have used the $170K you sent them." If you've made it this far, you might be wondering where my stepdad is in all this. His belief is, if the conversation is about money that is not his, then it's not his problem. It was never about the clothes or the shoes. I just felt so betrayed because I wanted to experience what other kids around me experienced. Not everything, but some things. As a kid, I was made to feel terrible for wanting anything because I supposedly had it better. I handed my mom my paychecks for years thinking times were just too tough, just to find out that I had nothing to feel guilty about. I feel like my childhood was taken away from me because I wanted all the things a normal kid asked for. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.